Hi, so this is an update on my 2020 challenge, hashtag Sew for the Soul handmade. I just thought I'd give a bit of an update of January and February as my piece is just about finished for these 2 months. So I decided to attach this to my bobbin, and I've done that by using a Dremel drill, drilled some holes through, and I've just stitched it on. Not sure about this join yet. I might put something a little bit neater on there just to cover it up, but once it gets wrapped around you'll not see what's going on. And I just thought you'd like to see the piece so far. So this first bit is January, where we were just focusing on getting everything together and just doing some straight stitches, just playing around with shapes and fabric and just looking at that straight stitch. And then the challenge that I set everybody for February, just sort that out, is to start adding Suffolk puffs. So I have got on my last video a tutorial on how to make a Suffolk puff. So I've got single ones, started overlapping them, playing around, lots of different versions. I really love the Suffolk puff because I think it adds that little bit of texture to your piece of work. Once you've got them on, you can really start playing around with the stitching that's going to go around the edge. Really highlight those shapes, stitching over the top, overlapping them, interspersing it with a little bit of vintage lace, and it just really starts adding a little bit more texture to the piece. I have gone back and carried on stitching back into January's piece, a couple of little knots there which I'm going to come to in March, and just adding more. And I think from what I've been seeing that a lot of people have said it is becoming a little bit addictive. I know I've got to a stage now where I end up doing this rather than doing something else, which is fantastic, but also a little bit naughty because I should be doing a lot more work at the moment. So that's January and February all done. I'll be giving you a bit of an update shortly on the challenge for March. Okay, see you in a minute. Good morning. I thought I'd share with you this morning my commute on a Friday to shed 76.5 and just show you the shed studio. I've shared my personal studio with you. Very lucky to have a room inside the house. But this is shed 76.5 in Brighouse, West Yorkshire, where I run my workshops from. And I just thought I'd give you a little quick tour of the shed. Very lucky, my fabulous hubby constructed this in 2017. And this is where I run the majority of my workshops from. And when I'm getting ready for a show like British Craft and Trade Fair, I'm going to be getting ready my stand. I'll share some photos with you over the next few weeks of my trade stand as I start building it up, and also the public stand because it's going to be open on the Saturday for the public to come and visit. Tickets are available at the moment. So this is the shed where I run my workshops from. Busy, ready, starting today's work. Got lots of kits planned that I need to get ready. Workstation, cup of tea, all ready to go. Started getting some work ready. So these are my stitched postcards that are on the go, ready for the trade show. And I'll be getting things ready later on today. Some more kits. Got lots of kits online, especially my embroidery kits. Sorry, I keep getting my finger in the way there. Still getting used to all this filming. So this is shed 76.5. It's a lovely place. Well, I think it is. I'm a little bit biased. But everybody that's been has really enjoyed working here. I've got lots of workshops coming up this year with places still available. So I'll be updating you on Sew for the Soul a little bit later on and what's going to be going on in Marvellous March. Speak to you soon. Okay, on to Marvellous March and the challenge for this month. While I've been stitching my piece, I've realised that if I keep on adding bits each month, it's going to be an absolutely monumental piece of work because it's just going to be absolutely huge. So I've decided that for March, we're going to go and work back into the areas that we've done and add a little bit more stitching. So what I was thinking is adding knots. I absolutely love knots, and if anybody's seen any of my work, you will know that I have a slight passion for knots. So I was just going to demonstrate a couple of the knots that I've been using and I'm planning to use this month. So the first is a French knot. So I'm left-handed. If you're right-handed, I'm really sorry. If you're left-handed, slight bonus, because it means that you can see something going on left-handed. So French knots are one of the first things that I absolutely love. So you bring your needle up through the piece of fabric, point it away from the hole, wrap it round 3 or 4 times, and then go back down near where the hole is. Just pull that a little bit tighter, and then slowly pull your thread through, and you are left with a tiny knot. So these are really, really nice to do. Putting a few of them near each other. You can go around 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 times, and just get different things. So if you can see that, I've got some really tiny little knots there. You can vary it up a little bit. So if you wrap it round, maybe a few more times, but keep it quite loose this time. I've not tightened it around the needle as much as before. Pull it through slowly, and what you get this time is a knot that's a little bit loopier, and it can be quite nice to add some texture. So 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Obviously, depending on the thickness of your thread, will also depend on how many times you want to pull it through. Just pull it slowly, and then you start getting these really lovely loopy French knots. So that's French knots. The other one that you can do, which is a little bit different from a French knot but fairly similar, which is a pistol stitch. So again, like you do with a French knot, just wind your thread around, but rather than going back down the hole, whoops, just go down a little way off, okay, and then pull it through. And what you end up with then is your knot is at the end of a stem. I use these a lot when I'm doing my pieces of work that look like gardens and I want things to look like flowers. So wrap it round 5 or 6 times, pop it in a little bit further on, just keep hold of that thread just to keep it tight around the top, and you can add a pistol stitch. The other one that I like to do, which is another one that adds texture, is a Boolean knot. So you've got your thread coming up, the length that you'd like your stitch, go back down through the fabric and then come back up near the needle where the needle first came out. Then what you want to do is get this thread and wrap it around your needle. And what you want to do is get enough thread so that the length of that there matches the length of the gap. Let's go a few more times. Right, if you just hold that bit, and then what you want to do is just pull this needle through. Now you just need to ease it just a little bit, depending on your fabric and how tight you've got that. Will just depend on how easily it comes through. So if you can see, I'm taking all those loops now off my needle, pulling that through. Just do things slowly to start off with, then just tease those little loops, and then you go back down that hole there and you get a little Boolean stitch. So again, you can play around with this one. So if I make my gap not as big, so come back up, but then just lengthen that bit. Oh, don't come out. But then if I wind this round and do this so it's longer than the gap, so what I mean by that is that's the gap there, and I've sort of gone a little bit longer here. So there's my first gap. That's the thread that I've done. So then if I come up again, just tease it through, let them come off, tease it on that thread. Now if I go back down that original hole, because my little coils, whoops, are a little bit longer, you end up then with a little knot that sticks off the surface. So that can be really, really nice to add some other stitches. The other one is a Colonial Knot, or the figure of 8 knot. So what you're going to do with this one is point your needle towards your hole, you go underneath and then over the top, and what you're trying to get, if I can show you, see that figure of 8 that's on the needle with the thread, that's what you're trying to get, and then pull it off and go back down, and you end up with these little knots that just stand off the surface. So again, you go underneath, over the top and back down. They're a little bit finer than a French knot, but again, if you do it quite tight, so if I keep that thread nice and tight and go back down, you get a really, really tiny dot. Whereas if I do it, so do my figure of 8 underneath, over the top, but loosen that off, don't pull it tight. There we go. And then pull it down, I end up with loopy knots. Okay, so my challenge for March is for each week to have a go at adding different knots to the piece that you've already done. So just to get a little bit ahead of the game, I've started doing that on my piece of work. So as I said, I've got it stitched on to my bobbin now. I drilled some holes through with a Dremel drill. It didn't look that neat at the top, so I've just attached another little bit of fabric there just to make it look a little bit more interesting. So I've got some pistol stitches here, just added in that gap. Just adds a little bit of interest and a bit more detail. Gone a little bit crazy here with French knots, really filled it in to add loads and loads of texture to my piece. Got a line of French knots that follow the straight stitches that I've done, and on this bit of lace here I've used a mixture of Colonial stitch. I've added some little lazy daisies in and just added a little bit more detail. We've got the Boolean knots going over the join, some more French knots there and there, pistol stitch going out from one of my Suffolk puffs. Then I've got my Suffolk puffs from this month. I've really enjoyed doing these. Got a little bit obsessed with them and started buying them online. Got a lovely parcel full. If you have a look at my Instagram post, I got some gorgeous ones from Ruby Sixpence today in the post, which was rather exciting. Some more pistol stitches there. On the lace here, I've done loads of little French knots. Don't know how well you can see that. But I did some loopy ones here just to fit at the side of the lace. And then here I've done little French knots just in the middle of the flowers. And then to attach the lace, I've used a white stitch. So it sort of makes it look like the lace, but I've just added a little bit of detail. I have added a tiny little bit more to my piece this month. I've got this gorgeous piece of lace here with a flower on it. So again, I've got some pistol stitches there and some French knots. Little French knots all the way around the edge to attach that piece of lace on. And then I've got another one of my Suffolk puffs. So I might still add a couple of bits. This is all that I've got left of my original cotton wadding. And we're only coming towards month 3, which is why I was saying about I don't want to keep adding bits all the time. So I am going to go back in and just look for areas where there's not much going on. I'm trying to fasten down my Suffolk puffs just a little bit more. But even little things like this one here, I've done some tiny French knots in the centre just to add a little bit of detail. So I'm taking inspiration from the fabric and the lace and all the bits that I've done, but it's about working into what you've already done. I have to say it's becoming rather addictive. I'm finding it quite hard to put this down, but it is beginning to look, well, I'm really pleased with it. It rolls up ever so nicely now on my bobbin. And if you are following all this on Instagram, there are some fantastic pieces of work. If you hashtag sew for the number 4 the sole handmade and follow it on Instagram. You can see what other people are doing, and we're getting quite a nice little community going on at the moment. So this is it all rolled up. It's beginning to fill my roll already, but I'm quite liking it at the moment. I think it feels very, very tactile and squidgy, and I'm really enjoying it. Really loving how people are beginning to take part and have a go. And there are some beautiful colour combinations. Makes me want to start another one, which I might end up doing. I don't know. But I have got other things to do as well at the moment, and I've got to keep putting this down. So your challenge then for March is to work back into the fabric that you've already done. And we are using 4 different knots. So you could do a knot a week, or you could just keep adding knots. So we've got the French knots, the pistil, the Boolean, and the Colonial. If you want to see these stitched again, if you look on some of my previous YouTube clips, I've got individual tutorials. I'm not talking on those ones because at that point I couldn't talk. It's just a demonstration of those different stitches from when I did my original Sew for the Soul. So that's me for March. Hopefully you'll continue to follow me. I'll keep putting things on Instagram and Facebook during the month, and I will be back again at the start of April. Okay, happy stitching everybody. Love and hugs, Anne.